All right, so this is the answer to the practice question for the lesson of linked and unlinked genes. So we had an example for the linked and unlinked genes where owls' eye colors and hair colors are being determined by two genes. Now in the question, it says that the two genes are thought to be located on different pairs of chromosomes. If you know your definitions well enough, if you see something like this saying that it's located on different pairs of chromosomes, it means that the two genes are not linked. They can be inherited separately. They're not bound to the same chromosome and go into the same gamete. Now, looking at this question, discuss how you could determine the genotype of serine and state the possible genotype of serine first, and then explain how you arrive at these different possible genotypes, and say how can you determine if she has children in the future what her actual genotype is. Now, the possible genotypes of serine, there are 4, because if you look at the phenotype, not genotype, if you look at the phenotype, the physical appearance of serine, you can see that she has a dominant phenotype, which means she has silver hair and golden eyes. For this to be possible, she must have at least one dominant allele for each of the two genes, the hair color and the eye color gene. So that's why I've written down all the possible genotype that has one dominant recessive alleles and all the one dominant allele and all the possible combinations. Okay, now here comes to bullet point number 3. Explain how her phenotype can be determined if she has children in the future. If she has children in the future, if you look at the question carefully, it says that her fiance has recessive traits. So Lofa has black hair and green eyes, meaning that her fiance has homozygous recessive genotype for both of these genes. Her husband could only contribute, her future husband could only contribute the recessive alleles. Now, this is perfect if we were wanting to determine the genotype of serine, because if you see any recessive traits or any recessive phenotype in serine and Lofa's children, it means that serine herself must contribute one recessive allele towards the phenotype that you see. So I've listed in words. For example, if this happens, then if her children show these kind of phenotype, then serine must have these kind of genotype. I've listed all the possible outcomes of all 4 of the possible genotypes. All right. Now, you don't have to do all of these if you were able to express things in words, just like that. All right. So you can pause the video and have a quick look at my answer and see if it matches with yours. Okay, here comes question 2. It was later discovered that the hair and eye color genes are linked. So meaning that they sit on the same chromosome, the same homologous pair of chromosome. And then in the question, if something is linked and I'm asking you to predict inheritance for linked genes, I very often will tell you which allele is linked with which. So in the question I said, silver hair is linked with golden eyes, and the other two, green eyes and black hair, are linked to each other. If we were to picture this or visualize this in a cell, it would look like this. You will have 2 chromosomes. They are homologous pairs, which means they have the same gene in the same loci or locus. Locus meaning a position on a chromosome. So they will have the eye color gene on top, hair color at the bottom. And these are a pair of homologous chromosomes. And if I see in the question saying that silver hair is linked with golden eyes, so this is silver hair, this is golden eyes. They always sit on the same chromosome. This is what the alleles linkage mean. And then green eyes and black hair is being linked, so they sit on the same chromosome. So if two L's are married, the male is heterozygous dominant for both genes, to be very exact. So this is one gene, this is another gene, and he is heterozygous dominant for both of them, meaning that he has one dominant and one recessive allele for that gene. And that happens with both of the genes. Inside the male's cell, this is exactly what's going to look like. The arrangement of chromosome and the arrangement of alleles. All right. And then the female has green eyes and black hair. So that means she has two recessive alleles for both of the genes, gene number 1 and gene number 2. Both of them are recessive. The next step is to visualize the gamete production. So when gametes are being produced from the male, because they inherit it in terms of chromosome, one chromosome will go in here, the other chromosome will go in the other sperm when you try and produce a gamete from a cell and split the amount of chromosomes up. Same likewise for the female. One chromosome is going to go into one and the other chromosome is going to go into the second one. And that is the reason why you can only produce sperms with either all dominant alleles from both genes or all recessive alleles from both genes. And when we do a Punnett square, you can see that this is the sperm box. And then these are the egg box, all right? And when you fertilize two gametes together, these two fertilize and you're gonna have this. These two fertilize and you're gonna have this, and so on. So for the genotype and phenotype ratio, because remember, we're not quite done, the question asks, what is the genotype and phenotype ratio in offspring? Looking at our Punnett square, our result section, the genotype will be 2 to 2. And we have to simplify this. Don't just leave it as 2 to 2 ratio. So if you simplified it, it will be 1 to 1. Likewise for phenotype ratio, it's 2 golden eyes, 2 silver hair, 2 of these, and then you can simplify it to a 1 to 1 ratio. All right, last question. What is the difference in linked and unlinked genes, and how can you tell by just looking at the offsprings? Now, in question 1 and 2, you can see that there are way more combinations possible if the parent is like a heterozygous genotype. You can see that all different situations are possible. And when genes are linked, because they're inherited on the same chromosome, you get way less combinations of genotype and phenotype. And that is a major difference. The combinations, or whether or not there's a hybrid between the phenotype of the two genes. Cool. So that's it for the practice question answers.